Tonight's meal, tilapia surprise with boiled cabbage. Begin cooking steps 1 through 50 now.
Are you kidding me? Making dinner shouldn't feel like doing a 1,000-piece puzzle. With Blue Apron's new one-pan assemble and bake meals, the hard part's already done. Pre-chopped ingredients, zero stress. Just assemble, bake, and enjoy. No complicated steps, no mountain of dishes. Try Assemble and Bake today. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Matter of time. I know you since you were at 20. I was 20 and thought that some years from now a purple little lady will be perfect for dirty old and useless clown. So yeah.
The Euro 2012 train is drawing into the terminus station as the tournament rumbles on and comes to its conclusion. Have you enjoyed it so far?
I certainly have, yeah. I think it's been excellent. Excellent tournament, and the Mario Balotelli Express is definitely rumbling on now, isn't it? So I'm looking forward to the final. I think it'll be a cracking game. Not the one I thought it would be. I guess not the one that many people thought it would be, but you got this shout right. You said Italy were looking good to win the championship.
Their very first game against Spain, they had something, I thought. I just had a feeling that there was the kernel of a team that could improve. It was fascinating to see their tactical approach in that first game against Spain, and the fact that they really went for Spain as well, which was kind of interesting, and we'll definitely talk more about that later. But they've grown throughout the tournament. I mean, obviously they should have dispatched England easily in normal time, but a combination of brave Lions defending by standing on the goal line and some wasteful finishing meant that they had to take it to penalties. But the semi-final against Germany, that's been the match of the tournament for me so far.
It was a cracking game, yeah, really strong performance by Italy. Shall we talk a little bit about the quarterfinals and the semis, and then we'll come on to preview the final, since this is our final Eurocast episode of these championships.
Absolutely, it's our final Eurocast episode for another 4 years. There's every chance this is our final ever Eurocast episode, but you never know, we might still be here doing this in 4 years' time. I guess if we look back at the quarterfinals one by one, the first one, Czech Republic against Portugal, or, I mean, legitimately, all joking aside, the Czech Republic against Cristiano Ronaldo.
It really was, wasn't it? Yeah, fine Ronaldo display. I guess the one where he really sort of came to life in the tournament, although he'd had a good game in the final group games. I thought an excellent performance by Portugal. I thought in many ways that they should have scored more. They were on top for the vast majority of the game. Just managed to squeeze through with that Ronaldo goal and deserved semi-finalists at that stage.
Yeah, I mean, the Czech Republic were absolutely abysmal in that game. They offered absolutely nothing going forward. In the game against Poland, they'd really taken it to Poland and actually looked threatening and dangerous when they had the ball, but they obviously felt they were outgunned in that one and just sat back and let Portugal come onto them. And you cannot do that against a team with Ronaldo in it, because eventually he's going to smash one in if you just give him that much opportunity and that much chance for his confidence to grow. And he did the weird Alan Partridge celebration when he scored that goal, didn't he?
I'm a tiger, Gareth Cheeseman. Yeah, it was odd. I'm not quite sure what that one was about. I don't think it's been fully explained since. Interesting with Portugal and Ronaldo there. I mean, he's had, including the semi-final, 37 shots on goal now, miles more than anyone else in the tournament, and just got the 3 goals to show for it. I think he's hit the post 4 times as well, so he hit the post a couple of times in that fixture. So in a way, his numbers for this tournament are underrepresentative of how good he's been, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the particularly notable post hit in that game where he took the ball down as it was played in behind him and he kind of did a pirouette and slammed it against the post, and then did the super rare live ball still in play flappy arms, which, you know, normally the flappy arms is when the ball's gone out of play, but he repositioned himself to be in the right place to receive a cross whilst doing the double arm flap.
Yeah, I'm thinking with Ronaldo, he's a fantastic winger because he's playing sort of wide in a 4-3-3 for Portugal. He's also a fantastic centre forward, and there's a great piece of centre forward play to take it on his chest and turn and get the shot away. And you kind of think if Ronaldo was Spanish, this Spain team would just be so far out of sight, no one would be able to touch them. I guess we'll get on to Spain, but he's just an awesome forward, all-round forward, and really shown it, and he's deserving all of the plaudits he's got in the tournament to date.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if Ronaldo was Spanish, then Spain would be Barcelona, because Ronaldo would be the equivalent of Messi to that Spanish team.
You've made the Messi comparison. Messi klaxon. Wah!
No, it wasn't a comparison at all. I was just saying he would make the equivalent difference of Leo Messi.
All right, forgiven.
But Ronaldo came unstuck finally in the semi-final against Spain. We'll come on to that. But at the quarter-final stages, it was looking like perhaps this would be the Ronaldo tournament, because the last group game, as you said, and this game against the Czech Republic was certainly dominated by Ronaldo, and he dominates that Portugal side because he's just a cut above. And the unfortunate thing for Portugal is that centre forward question remains such a huge problem, because Hugo Almeida played and he makes Helder Postiga look good.
I'm surprised they didn't play Nelson Oliveira, the young forward, and he seems like a utility forward that can play right across the front line there, but he's impressed me when he's come on. I have to say I haven't seen loads of him in club football. He's actually used as a substitute by his club team quite a bit as well, but there you go. Yeah, it's the reason Portugal aren't able to make that next step. I mean, they've got loads of talent there and probably a more balanced squad than they've had in the past, and they've grown, haven't they? I mean, started so negatively against Germany, basically looking for a draw, and then really exploded into the tournament. And they could be an outsider in a couple of years' time at the World Cup. Obviously difficult for European sides going to South America, of course, but they look like they have the kernel of a very good side there, don't they?
It's the funny thing about this tournament, because I keep thinking, oh well, this team could do well at the next World Cup. Then it's like, oh no, next World Cup's in Brazil. There's no point really looking at any of the teams in this tournament in terms of the next World Cup, because Brazil are going to win it pretty much. I think it's going to be so hard for anyone else to win it, and if someone else does win it, it's not going to be a European team. So you do think this is sort of the teams that have got close but fallen by the wayside in this tournament are really going to regret it, because it was their last chance for another 4 years probably to actually win a tournament. So talking of teams that have come close and looked incredibly good, Germany's quarter-final performance against Greece was masterful, although at one point the game was ridiculously, implausibly 1-1 as your boy Georgios Samaros scored a very odd goal at a very odd moment in that game.
It was odd, yeah, because Germany was so massively on top of the entire game. You just felt that when Greece scored, it wasn't a case of Greece pulling off an unlikely win, but the fact they just kicked a hornet's nest over. It got Germany angry, didn't it? Very angry, and they started slamming in goals from all kinds of angles and distances after that. Fine performance, I thought, all round. And at that stage, I think we'd have said that Germany might have been marginal favourites for the tournament. They were that good.
Yeah, I mean, I put a tweet out saying team to beat after that performance, because, I mean, it was just the goals. That was what got me, because obviously Greece aren't, I mean, they're tough to break down and all that, but actually they're not that tough to break down. They're trying to be tough to break down, but they're not very good at it. There's a slight England factor to Greece there. They look sort of porous for a team that was trying to set up to defend, but they did at all times have, 8 men in their own half. But Germany's finishing was amazing. My favourite goal in that was probably the Khedira goal, because it was just unnecessarily amazing finishing, because the goalkeeper wasn't in the goal at that point. He could have just passed it into the net, but no, he literally did a kind of Neo from the Matrix move to score that.
Yeah, fine stuff. Yeah, and a very impressive performance from Marco Reus as well. And interesting afterwards that, of course, all the tabloids picked up on that and started printing Reus to Arsenal stories, forgetting that 6 months ago he'd signed for Borussia Dortmund in a €22 million deal. He's an excellent young player and was fine in that game, I thought, for Germany.
At Awate91 tweeting, you'd have to be Tommy Carcetti to beat Reus. That was impressive. Yeah, so it was pretty easy for Germany, as you say. It kind of reminded me of when teams used to score against us. Do you remember when teams used to go 1-0 up against us, and it was like, oh, didn't want to do that. Just going to upset Roy Keane if you do that.
A stunning response from Germany, you're right. They were angered in some way, and they really went out and showed what they could do as a result.
And as has been widely pointed out, Angela Merkel celebrates goals just like Fergie. She does the exact same stand-up, air punch, granddad-looking thing.
Yeah, it's difficult for politicians, isn't it? I mean, the Greek Prime Minister was going mental. Not in that game, in previous games. He wasn't at that game. He'd had some kind of eye operation or something like that. I think he just tried to avoid the photo op with Angela Merkel. And yeah, he went probably mental like a fan when Greece got out of the group stages. But yeah, Angela Merkel, a bit wimpy, the celebration, I thought.
Oh, I don't know. I think she's pretty into it. I think she's a big fan of the Mannschaft.
I'm sure she is a big fan of the Mannschaft.
I legitimately didn't mean any terrible... I am upset with myself because I did not mean that.
Now, that's a visualisation I didn't want.
Oh, God, talking things we didn't want. The tie of the round, the pick of the ties, as I said in the last podcast. The worst... Well, no, probably not the worst game in the quarterfinals. The worst game in the quarterfinals that didn't feature Roy's heroic boys. The the Spain-France quarter-final was just... it was one of the most uninspiring football matches I've ever seen in my life.
It was very uninspiring, yeah. And odd, I mean, the pattern play was exactly as you'd expect, right? I mean, Spain had the majority of the ball and controlled the tempo and all of that kind of stuff. I guess the really disappointing thing was just how France played, really, and expected some more from them, and especially since their style probably matches Spain the closest of any of the teams, the leading teams in the tournament. I mean, they do try and pass and move the ball and retain possession and all of that kind of stuff, but there was just absolutely nothing from them, and all the fallout afterwards has been interesting. Of course, Nasri went on a 4-letter rant in the mix zone, said some pretty offensive things to French journalists who'd been having a go at him before and during the tournament, and as a result there's been another crisis in French football following this. I guess it's a bit more individual this time rather than the whole group, but yeah, so limp from France, and they very deserved to go out because they were so limp, but not a great game at all.
No, and I mean, you know, there's been a lot of talk about Spain and whether they're boring or not, and you got a bit irate about it when England were knocking the ball long. You were like, look, this is boring. I guess you still quite like this Spanish side in terms of the way they play.
Well, I think there's a massive amount of revisionism and hypocrisy going on amongst both fans and the media. They're playing the same way they did 2 years ago and 4 years ago, and Messi aside, the same way that Barcelona do. You know, they retain possession. 4 years ago and 2 years ago, they were the best thing ever invented in football. This was total football and it was a beautiful game. Now they're boring. I think it's a load of nonsense. What is boring, as I said last time out, is the fact that there's really no competition in the pattern of play. Spain dominated so thoroughly. It's not as if they haven't scored goals in this tournament. They have scored goals in this tournament. So what is it? You know, are they boring because there's no competition anymore? Are they boring because people are bored of this style of play? Because they're not playing any differently. So all these journalists who've said that they were the greatest thing ever a couple of years ago have now completely changed their mind. So that's what I think is weird. I'm not bought into the tiki-taka style as in that's the only way you can play at all. I think actually, as I said last week on last week's pod, Germany have played the best football in this tournament, even though they're now out, because it's exciting attacking football. And isn't that what people want to see? Exciting attacking football with talented players.
Just not sure I totally agree that they're playing exactly the same way they did in the World Cup and the 2008, especially not 2008. I do think that they did play very much this way in the 2010 World Cup, and actually didn't enjoy many of their 2010 World Cup games, except perhaps the one against Chile, which they were slightly more expansive. I mean, in 2008, had Villa and Torres both on absolutely lethal form up front, and, you know, Villa cutting in from the left and so dynamic and exciting and purposeful that there was a point, you know, I don't mean a reason, I mean, there was a tip of the spear, you know, so all the tiki-taka led to something. It created a momentum. It kind of, all that passing built up to a kind of explosive finish in a way that this tournament, they've played Busquets and Alonso, so it's incredibly defensive minded all the time, and they look so content to win 1-0. It's just depressing to me, and I'm not sure. As I said, 2010, yes, I will give you that this is very much the way they played, but 2008 was not like this. You know, 2008 was not so one-sided, and just that kind of, just when they're on the ball, they don't look like their retention of possession has overwhelmed everything else to the extent that it's just not that fun anymore. And I think, you know, it's all very well to say it's like revisionist, and I'm sure there is some of that, but like personally, I have no highfalutin purpose to any of what I'm saying, except for the fact that I was quite enjoying what Spain were doing in those previous two tournaments. I'm kind of sick of it now. It's like the third movie in a trilogy. All the spectacle and excitement has gone out of it, and yeah, it's perfectly effective and they're probably going to win the tournament, but still I haven't enjoyed a single game of theirs except for the game against Italy where Italy really stuck it to them.
So look, you just said it there, the third in the trilogy, right? So is this the problem? Is this the problem that they're probably going to win this tournament again, and that's the problem, or is it the style thing? So what they've done to the style, it's got nothing to do with the lack of forward. I mean, really, we've talked about this ad infinitum, you know, this is not the issue, right? It is not the issue. The real issue and the change in their style is the pace they play with in the forward areas, right? So instead of playing Villa and Pedro in forward areas, they're playing Silva and Iniesta, which is a completely different way of playing. So yes, they're moving the ball in a less pacey way. Actually, in the semi-final, when they brought Pedro on, and also Jesus Navas, they started to play with more pace in areas, and suddenly you get the commentators going, oh, they're playing like the Spain used to. So that's a style change. But effectively, they're playing the same system. They played with two holding players before. They played this short passing game and ball retention before. There's there's nothing majorly different about it. And I think the issue is two things. Yes, they're playing slightly differently, but not in a major way. But they're just still winning, and I think people get bored of that very quickly.
I think when we first talked about strikers at cross purposes, I wasn't quite hearing what you were saying, which I do now totally fully take on board. You're saying it's not a formational shift, it's a personnel shift, and they are legitimately playing Cesc as a 9, right? So there is a forward there, but it's Cesc, right? That's essentially what you were saying.
Well, no, that's what Del Bosque was saying, right? And he was really clear about it. I mean, we're still getting at cross purposes here. He was really clear on that point.
That's the first half of the point I'm making. The second half is we're now talking at cross purposes where I feel like you just said the issue is not the strikers versus no strikers. And I'm not saying that's the issue. When I cite Torres and Villa and the tip of the spear, I don't mean because of the system. I mean because of the personnel. Because there was, and as you say, rightly say, when Navas and Pedro came on against Portugal, it all came to life again. And there was that kind of excitement and vivacity and just vivaciousness about the side. And my problem with Spain is not that it's boring that they're going to win. I'm perfectly happy with that. It's that they haven't played they've played 1.5 games this tournament, which I've enjoyed, in a tournament where I basically enjoyed the whole thing. So it's like, that's not because there's no doubt about the outcome, because there was doubt about the outcome against Croatia, I think. There was definitely doubt about the outcome against Portugal. It's just that it's like watching somebody put someone else in a sleeper hold, and that was not my experience of watching them in previous tournaments. So you might be right. It might just be that people are bored because they're kind of got a short attention span and want a new narrative, and this is the same narrative. But to me, it's like that absolutely crucial difference of the lack of pace in the final third is the exact thing that's making them less exciting to watch.
Okay, but we'll see in the final. I mean, we'll come to a final preview, but I think there will be no change from Spain in this final. They are very unlikely, given how Italy might set up, I think they're very unlikely to throw on a couple of forwards, or in fact 3 forwards, and go for it like that. They will be looking to stifle Italy in midfield, and that's not defensively stifled, but, stifle their pattern of play. But let's talk about the final later. There's one other quarter-final, of course. You mentioned earlier, I had tweeted that you find Spain boring. This is boring. This was England, who unbelievably turgid as a performance. And, I mean, I didn't buy into the kind of Roy's Brave Lions nonsense before. Not in the slightest, and obviously I get stick for that. But this was just ridiculous. The best passing combination, most brilliant stat of the whole tournament, this one, was Joe Hart to Andy Carroll. And he only came on after 60 minutes. So in 30 minutes, those two managed to bang the ball long repeatedly. And this is just basically what England did for the whole game. And they got worse as the game went on. And in a way, it was a real shame that Italy didn't absolutely thump England, because that's what the performance and the tactical outlook deserved.
I'm nodding my head like a crazy person sat in a room on my own here. Could not agree more. The worst thing about that game, the most sickening moment for me, was before the game when the 3 BBC pundits all picked an England win. And I was like, what have you people been watching? The whole kind of good thing about England winning Group D was that it was unexpected. They'd exceeded expectations. But what happened was everyone completely forgot that they'd all decided England weren't very good, because before the tournament it already started to happen. The thing of like, expectations are so low, finally the expectations are off, that means they're definitely going to win now because we've lowered our expectations. And this was like, all the expectation stuff gone out the window, everyone expecting England to win, just pathetic kind of atmosphere around the game beforehand, because this was still the team that with the personnel that he selected, I think he did a perfectly serviceable job. I think the decision to play Terry instead of Rio was a very depressing one for footballing reasons, and a monumentally depressing one for the other reasons. But it's the point at which he took Welbeck off and put Carroll on, and you just thought that that's an absolute sickener, because this is just going to be miserable from now on. I can't remember who it was that said it, but you quoted it in the live blog. Andy Carroll is a false big man. Best line I've heard.
I mentioned a few stats from Andy Carroll in the last podcast, didn't I? I mean, his ability to hold up the ball is non-existent. I mean, I just don't get what he adds to this England side at all. Aside from, you can knock it long at him and you might get his head on it, but if you're not going to have a runner in behind, he's not going to get a flick onto anyone. And so then you're only looking for set pieces. And that was basically England's game plan, to defend in bulk and then look for set pieces. And I think the criticism of English players afterwards that has been lumped on mainly Ashley Young and Wayne Rooney, and I guess we know all the reasons why that happened. It's completely ridiculous. This this was a system set up from the start in the worst group in the tournament to not lose. And Roy Hodgson proudly said afterwards, we didn't lose a game. No, that's right, but you weren't in danger of winning against anyone decent either. And it was there to save face for Hodgson and the FA to try and not lose defenders deep as possible. They sacrificed all attacking fluidity for shape. It was impossible for the attacking players to put in a decent performance unless you call heading the ball in from impossibly long distances away a decent performance. But I just thought it was a complete mess of a system from an attacking point of view. That's the definition of boring for me. A bunch of cloggers banging it long. I don't think that's got anything to do with modern attacking football. Andy Carroll can't lay the ball off to anyone, and Danny Welbeck had a fine tournament. I mean, he barely got the ball. I mean, across his 4 games, he's had less passes than Xavi would have in one game, but he's like 90% pass success. He was very good leading the line in very difficult circumstances, Welbeck, so he comes out with some credit, but virtually nobody else does. And I mean, except England's brave defenders and all that kind of nonsense. I think it's good for the tournament England went out. The difficult part is now, right? So if you're Hodgson, England may well qualify for the next World Cup because they don't have an impossibly difficult group to get out of. So you'd expect England to qualify. But can he develop a side that has any attacking nous at all? I mean, I just don't see it. I mean, look at the group of personnel they've got. I think they'll go to the next World Cup looking to play exactly the same way.
Yeah, I mean, that's a horrendous thought. A few things about the game itself. Firstly, Ashley Young coming for a lot of criticism, but he was playing as an LM, to use Football Manager language, and he's not an LM. If you're playing in Football Manager, his LM would be like a kind of dark orange colour. That's just not his position. He's not a left midfielder. He's a forward who plays on the left of a 3 or in the middle behind the striker. He was perfectly serviceable when he played behind the striker in that first game against France.
60% of Ashley Young's touches came in his own half, right? And that tells a real story, doesn't it? And, he was getting the ball in defensive positions and having to run up blind alleys all the time.
But before I get accused of being just a massive United apologist, I thought Rooney, that was one of the worst performances I've ever seen Rooney put in. I thought everything he did was terrible. He looked exhausted. Yeah. It was never going to work. Bringing Rooney on in that last group game to try and kind of spur him into the tournament and inject him as this kind of wild card factor into the rest of the tournament, they would have been better off leaving him at home and building the side around the forwards that were going to be there throughout the whole thing.
Okay, that's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it was to not left him on the bench for all the warm-up games. He should have played in some of those warm-up games. Here's the reason why that happened, right? Roy Hodgson set out to create an England side that was not going to lose, and the best, most wild expectations were getting out of the group, right? So that's why he set it up like that. If you wanted to go further in the tournament and have a team in the system that could potentially challenge the leading nations, he should have played Rooney in some of those friendly games, kept him fit and fresh, and so the best player in the England side, best player by some distance, could affect games in the latter part of the tournament. But the fact is, he had a terrible game against Italy. He just looked all over the place. He didn't look fit at all because he hadn't played for 5 weeks apart from that Ukraine game. It's not surprising. We've seen him. He's probably running on adrenaline against Ukraine, and we've seen him at United when he's come back from injury. He takes a while to get into games, and this wasn't injury, but he hadn't played for 6 weeks, 5-6 weeks.
He had a terrible game against Ukraine as well. Terrible. He got the goal, but it was a 4-5 out of 10 at best. I legitimately think if you were giving him an honest score out of 10 in that Italy game, you'd give him 2 out of 10, bump it up to 3 because he took his penalty brilliantly. I thought he was nailed on to miss that penalty, how tired he looked, but he dug in, and there was the adrenaline there. A stunningly hit penalty. It's interesting as well, Hodgson saying that England didn't lose a single game, but that penalty shootout was seriously lost. It wasn't like that England got unlucky in that penalty shootout. Andre Pirlo destroyed Joe Hart's confidence, just sent a kind of momentum shift down through the heart of that penalty shootout with that penalty.
Well, he said afterwards, he I'm paraphrasing here, but basically that he took Joe Hart down a peg or two. Yeah. Deliberately so, because he was being cocky and making faces and all of that kind of stuff, and too right, I think.
He was amazing, right? It's as has been said so many times, a shame England haven't got a world-class genius aging central midfielder who could ping the ball about for fun and never lose his possession.
Yeah, well, the whole thing about England this tournament depresses me, and it's not just the way that England played, which I have found felt any inspiration in whatsoever. It's the whole circus surrounding England, and the fact that people are actually proud of how this England team played. We could have had, with a few personnel changes and a style change, a perfectly legitimate England side that would have played some decent football, probably still gone out of the quarter-final stage, there's no reason why with a few personnel changes and a slight change in formation, this England side couldn't have played some decent football. Doesn't mean they were world beaters, doesn't mean they were ever had good enough players to go out and take on Italy and Spain and Germany and stuff like that, but they could have at least played some decent football. And the fact is that Roy Hodgson just wanted grafters, right? He turned Gerrard into a grafter, and Gerrard had a half decent tournament. He put Scott Parker in there, who's miles away from being international class. Despite all the ridiculous awards got, he's just miles away. And he's played Ashley Young miles out of position, and he's played James Milner, who's basically a central midfielder, and played him on the right to protect Glenn Johnson, who had an awful tournament. The whole thing has been a complete mess from start to finish, but Roy Hodgson has saved some face by his quote, not losing.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I'm pretty sure that is enough about talking about stupid England, isn't it? They were depressing all tournament, and they've got a lot of United players, and we're both in England, so we're perhaps better placed to discuss the kind of world around England than we are with different sides. But yeah, they were depressing, and I was also pretty glad when they didn't win that penalty shootout, because it would have been a kind of massive travesty. If they had won that penalty shootout, that would have meant that Germany would definitely be in the final against Spain, though. But Italy won the penalty shootout, and that brings us on to the semi-finals. I mean, there were no huge shocks in the quarterfinals. I think the favourites won every single game in those quarterfinals, which I guess that's pretty unusual. But the semi-finals didn't quite go to form. Portugal versus Spain was an odd game. I really, really enjoyed the first half of that, when Portugal really seized the mantle, and the Spanish did not look like they liked it up them, frankly. They didn't like it when Portugal were kind of attacking, and some of Spain's passing looked a bit hurried.
Well, it was a pressing, right? So Portugal attacked when they could get the ball. I mean, still only had the ball 40% of the time, but kind of what we expect, isn't it, when Spain are playing. But Portugal attacked with some verve, but they pressed in defence, and they pressed in defence really, really well, and it meant Spain's passing accuracy dropped somewhat. It was only 85%, which, Roy Hodgson has wet dreams about having an England side that can do that. 67%, by the way, for England is quite shocking, really. But yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Portugal took the game to Spain on two levels. One, that they were prepared to throw a load of players forward when they were attacking on the break, and two, they pressed and pressed and pressed and pressed, and they managed to keep that up for most of the game as well. It's like you think United 2011 Champions League final managed to press for about 10 minutes and then gave up, but this Portuguese side didn't, and they deserved to take Spain all the way in that game.
First 10 minutes both of that game and the England game actually reminded me of that 2011 Champions League final, because England had a decent 10-minute spell in the first 10 minutes of the Italy game, but they definitely gave up. But Portugal did not give up. I kind of thought it was going to happen, but it didn't. They genuinely rattled Spain, and of course Ronnie should have won it. The ball, as everyone has said in the last minute, was kind of a little behind him from Morelos, but people are kind of saying it was a bad pass, but I actually think if you look where the defender is, he doesn't have the angle to play it in front of Ronaldo unless he loops it past the defender, but I'm not sure there's enough space for him to kind of bend the ball around into Ronaldo, so he plays it half a step behind Ronaldo, but he's still got absolutely acres of space once he's got the ball back into his stride and set himself. And then destiny was not on the side of Cristiano Ronaldo, as he so clearly believes it should be, and the ball went flying over the bar.
For most players, that excuse of the ball's half yard behind him would be legitimate, and it made it a difficult chance. But for Ronaldo, who's got 60 goals this season, that was a good chance, right? And so you judge him by different standards, I guess, because of his quality. And so yeah, he could have won the game there for Portugal, and I'm sure he'll regret that one, because a player of his quality, it might have been on his left side, but really shoots with the same power off both feet, and could have done better. But and then of course the controversy surrounding the fifth penalty that never happened for Portugal, and the fact that it seems that Ronaldo either was asked to or said he wanted to take the fifth penalty. So is this his rampant ego at play here, wanting all the glory of winning it, or as he's tried to argue, it seems, did the coach say, will you take the fifth penalty, and he said yes?
It's interesting because you wonder when it becomes clear that they need the fourth penalty to go in, you can't shift the order around. I mean, they kind of shifted the order around as it was, because Bruno Alves went up to take the penalty in the wrong spot, and Nani went up and took it off him, which was it's a very odd thing, because he psyched himself up to take the pen, to kind of stop him and say, no, it's my turn now. It's just, the whole thing had a very surreal atmosphere, didn't it?
Clearly Portugal made some mistakes in there, didn't they, in the penalty shootout. It's weird. I mean, we have this debate every tournament, because there will always be one or two penalty shootouts, and it's got almost nothing to do with the game. It's a mental exercise. I mean, any professional player can put the ball in the top corner from 12 yards, except when they're under huge amounts of pressure. Interesting, actually, not to go back to England too much, but Hodgson said afterwards, we practice all the time, but you can't replicate the stress and the fatigue. Well, you can replicate the fatigue. It's called fatigue training, and actually many professional sports do that, because it's about being mentally prepared when you are knackered. And so it'd be interesting to see whether they did that. I know they took a lot of penalties at the end of training sessions. What you can't do is replicate the pressure of the situation. It does funny things to really top players, doesn't it? And they start behaving really strangely. And my God, Nani, I thought he was nailed on to miss that penalty when he sort of stutter stepped upwards. When I see that one, players either running up straight or taking a ridiculously short run up or stuttering, you kind of think they're going to miss, but he then went and slammed it in the top corner.
Yeah, he certainly did. He's an odd kettle of fish, Nani. He's had a weird tournament, very uppy downy, just I guess as you would expect from Nani, really phenomenal effectiveness sometimes, and then he's just Nani, and he's not on that level of consistent application, but he does consistently make a difference for the teams he plays for.
Yeah, well, I think you're right about the performances. They've been up and down. He didn't have a good semi-final, but he had before that 3 really good games, I thought. But his numbers look great. I mean, he creates lots and lots of chances for his teammates. He gets lots of assists. He didn't really score, did he, in this tournament? But I think overall he's had a pretty good tournament. It's just that consistency thing. And after 5 years at Old Trafford, we know that he probably will never be able to consistently perform, but he consistently puts up good numbers, and that's why he gets a game all the time.
I mean, I'm reading Soccernomics at the moment, and it's what it's all about, isn't it? As fans, you kind of watch it and go, oh, Nani's inconsistent, because he does make mistakes a lot during games, but he's not inconsistent at all in terms of his output. He's incredible. He's a numbers machine. He makes goals happen for your team. It's just that they won't necessarily happen at the exact crucial moment where you desperately need them to, and he's got a really good opportunity. That's the problem.
Yeah, no, it's a fair assessment.
That semi-final was not the best spectacle, especially the kind of first 2/3 of the second half, really very sort of slow, and Portugal did finally run out of steam. But I am so in love with football after the semi-final between Germany and Italy. It was just a feast for the eyes for the neutral.
It was bizarre in a way, Germany, how badly they defended, because we hadn't expected that. I mean, they defended really well throughout the tournament, and Italy took the game to them. Obviously, then their number one pass, it seems, is Pirlo from deep through the centre to Balotelli, and it worked against England, almost, and it definitely worked against Germany. I was surprised how badly they defended Germany, and they were caught out by that ball repeatedly, not just for the goals, Balotelli's stunning second there, but throughout the game. And then, of course, they had to attack after they went 2 down, and it made for a really, really stunning game.
Yeah, and I mean, you really felt for Germany, because they did offer this tournament so much, and they never quite hit the top form that we expected they would, except in that game against Greece, once it had got to 1-1. But Greece are not the most sterling opposition. But yeah, I mean, Andrea Pirlo, the final, I don't know what to say. I legitimately don't know how to offer any useful analysis of that game last night, except to say, if you didn't watch it and you like football, do yourself a favour and watch a recording of it, because it was just so much fun. Like, Italy's passing was wonderful. Pirlo, the player of the tournament so far. There's, he's a shoo-in for player of the tournament, I think, depending on how the final goes, I guess. But he's been Scholes-esque. His passing has been completely and utterly magnificent, and no team has properly managed to pressure him out of effectiveness.
He has been magnificent for the last 10 years. It's funny how I guess our English audiences have only just worked it out, but I mean, that's how he's been for forever. He started off very early in his career as a more attacking player, but was moved back quite early on, and he's been playing that quarterback role for the last 10 years at a ridiculously high level. I mean, Milan certainly made a mistake letting him go, ago, and it was Juve's game, and his renaissance with Juve has led to a renaissance with Italy as well. And actually, you've got to say with Italy, I mean, given the mess they were at the World Cup when they finished below New Zealand in their group, that Prandelli has done a really excellent job, and he's turned them into not a traditional Italian side. You know, I read one piece saying they play with rhythm, and I thought that was a really good description, because they do. There's a flow to their game, and they reflect Serie A at the moment, which is not a defensive league, it's a very attacking league at the moment with a lot of innovative tactics. We saw that early on in the tournament, Italy playing three at the back for that game against Spain. It'd be interesting to see whether they do it in the final. And they are nice to watch as a result. I mean, they're conservative in that they don't throw 6 players forward at every attack, and that's it's legitimate to say that. Unlike Germany, who do throw loads of players forward, but they're very, very effective with the players that they do use in forward areas, and they keep two forwards on the pitch at all times. Cassano and Balotelli have been excellent, and certainly were against Germany, and they deserve their place in the final, Italy, I mean, for their performance against Germany.
Well, I mean, Cassano and Balotelli have had a very mixed tournament, both of them, because they were stunning against Germany. They linked up beautifully for Balotelli's first. A wonderful bit of business from Cassano with the kind of spin, and just an absolute bullet of a header from Balotelli. But they have had very rough patches. I mean, Cassano's had a pretty poor tournament a lot of the time. Their movement and stuff's been effective, but their finishing's been patchy. I mean, England should have got absolutely buried, and they would have done if Balotelli had his shooting boots on. But he's kind of peaked late in this tournament, Balotelli. And you know, it's interesting about the not throwing players forward. Balotelli genuinely means you don't have to throw that many players forward, because he's so enormous. You know, he occupies the attention of more defenders than a normal man, Balotelli, because he has got that kind of charisma and larger than life presence, as well as being, as he was keen to demonstrate to the world, a unit of considerable proportions. You know, so he does occupy the attention. He's so fast and so strong, and when he's on his game, so effective.
Yeah, there's an inconsistency there in that he doesn't always provide the end product for all the talent he's got, and he doesn't always legitimately look like he wants to do it either. I mean, he was definitely up for it in that semi-final, and that second goal was a fantastic finish. I mean, right into the top corner. Of course, the way he hit it, it could have gone into the top corner or hit row Z. I mean, you know, it's such a fine margin between the two things there, and I guess if you decide to put your foot through it, really put your foot through it, and there's no chance for the keeper with that finish.
No, it's interesting the kind of whether he wants it or not. He's a fascinating character to me, not in the PR sense. The whole thing about him going to that school was not true, and there's loads of nonsense written about Balotelli. Musa Okwonga wrote a really interesting piece about our definition of Balotelli and in relation to Gascoigne as well, that we Bobby Robson said that thing about Gascoigne, that he didn't underachieve for his talent, he massively overachieved for his personality type. And we tend to sort of think about Balotelli like, oh, he's fine, but he's a nutter, you know, if only he wasn't so stupid and idiotic and all that kind of stuff, then he could be a real great. But it's actually, the man has genuine human personal issues, which are not, that don't go away because you become a millionaire footballer. The idea that money doesn't buy happiness or sanity is not some hippie myth, it's the absolute truth. And actually to hold it together long enough to forge a career in professional football and have any chance to express your talent is something sort of admirable for a person with that level of personal challenge. The fact is, it looks to me like he much prefers Italy to Man City.
Wouldn't you?
I would. I really would. I do.
Well, yes, quite. So, I mean, Germany, interesting where they go from here, because they've got such a young, vibrant side, and everyone's been full of praise for the way they reorganise football in Germany and produce all these talented players, and the depth of talent in their squad is incredible. But as we mentioned earlier, it'll be really difficult for them to do anything in the next World Cup because it's in Brazil and there's massive distances between cities and the heat and the fact that no European team has ever won South America. And all of that kind of means that 4 years' time in France is probably their big opportunity to win a tournament. And of course, by then, a lot of these young players will be much more mature and it'll be a very different side. So I guess they'll leave this tournament feeling that they've missed out on a really big opportunity to win for the first time since '96.
Yeah, I mean, this was their tournament, wasn't it? It was this generation's tournament. How old was Schweinsteiger being? 4 4 years. I don't know
Yeah,
how.
quite. He'll be well past his peak, and they'll have to find a new general in the midfield, I guess. I mean, there are plenty of players that are in the 22, 23 sort of age range: Royce, Cruz, Özil, Neuer, the goalkeeper. So they've got lots and lots of young players there in Hummels that legitimately probably have the central defender of the tournament, has really emerged in this tournament. So they've got the nucleus of a really good side. As I say, they've got loads of quality and depth in their squad. How that matures and changes over the next 4 years will determine whether they will have a shot at the Euros in 2016. But I think you're right. I think this was their tournament. I think they'll go home regretting that they haven't won it.
So what do you think happened to them in that game? Why
They
didn't...
defended badly. Yeah, Bad Stuber had a bad game. I actually, both of those were on his side. I mean, they had plenty of the game, right? I don't think we should pretend that Italy were on top for the entire game. It was the good thing, the reason why that was exciting in the game. There was a lot of ebb and flow to it. So they had plenty of the game. They couldn't score the goals in forward areas that they might have done in other games, and they defended badly. And there you go. Details matter in football, don't they? And I think they'll regret those details a lot.
Yeah, and Italy defended extremely well. Handled Mesut Ozil is an incredible player, isn't he? I mean, it's not quite happened for him in this tournament, but when he's been on it, he's been staggering to watch.
Well, he dictates Germany's play, so it goes through him all the time. It doesn't really matter where he plays. He has such a loose role that he runs into the channels quite a bit and also dictates from the centre of play, but from the centre of the field. But it's the tempo that he creates for Germany that's so important. He's had a fabulous season with Real Madrid and a really good tournament. Not quite happened, as you said before. The narrative is written in terms of who wins and the big games, and because of that, and because he wasn't able to influence that game in the way that, say, Pirlo was, he's definitely not the player of the tournament, but he's had a fine tournament overall.
He has. I thought it was a peculiar decision by Jogi Löw to take Mario Gomez off at half-time, because either don't pick him or leave him on for 60, 75 minutes.
There was some indecision, wasn't there, in forward areas? I mean, he dropped Gomez for the last group game, and he's kind of rotated the two of them, and I think that's affected Germany as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wonder if some of the blame needs to be laid at Jurgi's door. Is he going to stay and manage Germany?
It appears so. Yeah. I mean, Bert van Marwijk's gone from Holland, but I don't think that Löw will fall on his sword in quite the same way. I mean, there's no real reason to. It's okay. The expectations were very high in Germany. Expectations were they'd win the tournament. What was that? The poll beforehand, that 3/4 of the German population believed that Germany were going to win the tournament. So very, very high expectations there, and as a result, he might be under some pressure. But yeah, they've got a really good side, and they lost in the details, and I don't think that's a good reason to go. It makes sense for him to stay on, but we'll see. I mean, I guess coaches go for less, don't they?
They do. I wonder. It's fascinating because I think if you keep him for the World Cup, you kind of have to know that he wants to be there for the next Euros. I just think it's a really odd time for European teams because that World Cup in Brazil, it's not just in South America, If it was in Chile, it would be still, everyone would be saying, well, that's going to be very difficult. But there's something about the fact that it's in Brazil, that there can't be a harder place to go and win a World Cup unless you're Brazil.
Right, yeah. I guess we'll get on to the World Cup when we do World Cup rank cast in a couple of years' time.
So let's talk about that final, and it's coming. It's exciting. The game of the tournament so far for me, that Italy-Germany semi-final. But perhaps my second favourite game of this tournament was that opening round of fixtures game between Spain and Italy, the 1-1 draw, the 3 at the back versus the false 9. Are we going to see the same formations again? It's so exciting.
Yeah, it's a difficult one to call, isn't it? Because if you're Spain, he played Negredo in the semi-final, and he didn't have a great game. And Negredo's a legitimate forward, but he still played as the false 9. I mean, you look how deep he came so often in that semi-final. So I'm sure they'll play the same system. I don't think there'll be any change in that from Spain. Will he play Cesc up there? If I was betting, I would say that it's 2-1 that he'll play Cesc instead of Torres or Negredo or Llorente, who isn't even plan Z at the moment, is he, Llorente? I feel sorry for him in a way. He's just kind of sitting it out on the bench. But if they do that, there'll be 3 Italian defenders. If Italy pick 3, they've only actually done it in that one game so far. So if Italy do the same tactics and pick 3, there'll be 3 Italian defenders doing nothing, and that's a tactical issue for Italy. So I again guessing, I would say that Spain will play Cesc up there and Italy will go a flat back 4 in order to negate that, because otherwise they've got a spare man there that they're wasting, and they'll put him into midfield.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they'll put De Rossi into midfield, but also the fact that Chiellini's injured makes it harder for them to play. Well, might be injured is a doubt. I guess makes it harder for them to play that back 3. I'm super excited about this one because Italy looked completely undaunted by Spain in that first game, and I think their confidence must be sky high. They really are playing like a team without any fear, because that Germany team's an intimidating team to play against. If you're going to be intimidated by anyone, they're just as likely to intimidate you as anyone. And they do seem to have kind of, they got Pirlo's the ultimate general. They've got Balotelli, who is many things, but a scaredy cat is not one of them. And nor is like him and Cassano are not exactly shy about their own abilities, and how they stack up against other teams. So I think Italy have got every chance. Spain are obviously favourites because they're the world champions, they're the European champions. Their level of ball retention is unsurpassed in the history of football. I don't know if that's true because I know nothing about 1890s football. But they probably keep the ball better since Scotland when they first invented passing.
I think you've got some really salient points there. Italy are confident. And they're confident, not just confident because they're a confident side at the moment. They're confident in playing Spain, and I think they'll have taken a lot out of that first game. I don't think the passing of the play will change that much. I mean, Spain will have a lot of the ball because that's just how they play. Are Italy going to be more decisive with the 40% of possession they get than Spain are with the 60-odd% of possession that they get? You could say they might well be. I mean, if you look at the patterns of play in the tournament today, Italy have the tools to do some damage with that smaller amount of possession. It's going to make a big difference who scores the first goal. It always does in these big games, but Spain score that first goal, they're going to suffocate Italy by retaining the ball forever, aren't they? And Italy score that first goal. Spain have got to react, and does Spain react by throwing on Pedro and Navas and Torres and perhaps sacrificing some of that ball possession for a bit more penetration in the final third, or are they patient, which they always are, right up until the end? I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's a fascinating battle, both of in terms of the personnel and the players and the tactical side of things, and it should be a really good game. It certainly was last time out.
Do you have a team that you would rather won? Do you have a team you like more?
No, I don't think so. I want a good game with lots of attacking football and chances and all of that kind of stuff. I just hope it's a good game. I'd like it to not go to penalties.
Yeah, I think the only way I'd like it to go to penalties is if someone equalises to make it 4-4 in the last minute of extra time or something. Fairly unlikely, but you never know. I would either like Italy to win or Spain to kind of make everyone fall in love with them again by adding a bit of adding that kind of final third dynamism to their glorious technical ability, re-adding that final third dynamism back into the side. But I've kind of really got a bit of a man crush on Italy, really. I really like the way they played in that game against Spain. As I said on the podcast, I kind of had a sneaky feeling at that point that they were going to win the tournament, which seemed like a massive long shot at the time, but now obviously they're in the final and they've just got a phenomenal chance. I mean, Spain definitely favourites, there's no doubt about that.
I think they're legitimately favourites because of all I've just said there about how the pattern of the play will go, and of course they know they win, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that does count for something, and I think you expect the big players to perform big in the biggest game, and all those Spanish players have been used to doing that. And if they do go with that sort of false nine with Cesc up there up front and Iniesta and Silva in the wide areas rather than say Pedro and Navas, they've got those players to throw on at the end, and they can change the game if they want. And I'm not sure that's necessarily the case with Italy. I mean, their big substitution is to bring Di Natale on, and he's not really an impact player. So I think all of those things, I think the fact that Spain will keep the ball more, they've got the big players who are used to doing it, and they've got more off the bench, meaning they're favourites. Doesn't mean I think they're definitely going to win. I think they probably will win, but it doesn't mean they're definitely going to win. They're narrow favourites.
Okay, so I guess since it's the last episode of the Eurocast, first of all, thank you very much everyone that's listened to this. We've had a few weird technical hiccups getting the show out, but hopefully all that's resolved, and I tell you what, it'll definitely be resolved by the time we come back for the new season for the proper actual legitimate rantcast. But I suppose we should look back on the tournament as a whole, pick a few key moments. Goal of the tournament for you, Ed?
I think it's a close call between Ibrahimovic's flying volley and Mario Balotelli's flying volley. How about those two?
They were both sumptuous. Of course, I've got to give it to Ibra because he's Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and also I legitimately preferred that technique. Staggering, absolutely kind of just. Oh, what a goal. What a man. What a Zlatan. And then, I guess, favourite defensive performance of the tournament. Most impressive defender.
Well, Hummels for Germany, I think he's been outstanding. I mean, it's his breakthrough tournament in that it's the first time he's really been first choice for a German side at a tournament. And I don't think it's a breakthrough in that he's been, he's double German champion with Borussia Dortmund and has been outstanding, so it's not like he's new to anyone, but I think he's been outstanding. He's great on the ball, he's great off the ball, he can pass, head, loads of pace, he's a complete all-round defender. Fergie, sign him up.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt he's the defender of the tournament as a whole, although my favourite individual defensive performance was probably De Rossi against Spain in that first game, mostly because of the sleeves, but not entirely because of the sleeves. Seeing him as the most cultured ever sweeper, and that's saying something. Actually, it's probably also not true because there's been some hella cultured sweepers, but he was just wonderful in that game, and it was lovely to see that role, which has completely disappeared from the game, suddenly come back.
Well, it hasn't disappeared in Italy. Quite a few teams play with three. The interesting thing about that, I mean, obviously a midfielder with a kind of slightly defensive bent on him and moving into the back three with such ease hasn't always been the case. I mean, remember everyone used to talk about how Roy Keane could do it, and then had a couple of games where he had a bit of a nightmare in the back four there. So not all midfielders of that kind of type can do it. De Rossi did it. It looked like he'd been doing it all his life.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess this is the wrong order, but goalkeeper of the tournament.
Well, Casillas, because he's just excellent all the time. He doesn't ever make a mistake. Neuer made no mistakes. Buffon, the command of that back three or back four has been outstanding. I mean, he's been around forever now, Buffon, hasn't he? I mean, he's emerged as a 17-year-old and has got about 400 caps for Italy. Just looks in complete command of his situation. Hart definitely not. Had actually a pretty average tournament, I thought. He flapped at quite a few crosses and punched when he shouldn't have done.
Yeah, he did the classic Joe Hart thing that Oate always talks about, of knocking the ball out to a dangerous position instead of clearing it right or left. I think actually Buffon had a slightly dodgy game against Germany. He did a lot of very good commanding type things, but there were just a few moments where he got a little bit fortunate, I thought. He maybe even, I know this is heresy, slightly flapped at a couple of things. Obviously, Manuel Neuer gets goalkeeper of the tournament because he'd done a diving header in the centre circle. You're going to have to go a long way to beat that, as far as I'm concerned.
Desperation stuff that was, wasn't it? Yeah.
So, midfielder of the tournament is Andrea Pirlo. There's no doubt. This is all with the exception of the final. We don't know what's happening in the final, of course. And it's a very silly time to give out these kind of awards, but it's, because the final is often some of the most memorable moments of the tournament. Who's been your favourite centre-forward this tournament? Not necessarily the best, but the one you've enjoyed watching the most.
Well, that's a difficult one because, I mean, I guess you'd say Ronaldo, if you can call him a centre-forward. I mean, he's played left side of that three, but everything goes through him, so he's definitely the pivotal part of that Portuguese side. So, I mean, I think he's been outstanding. Funnily enough, the centre-forwards for the other major nations have been up and down. I mean, we talked about Gomez, he started the tournament well, hasn't had a good knockout phase, has he? And Balotelli up and down, very up and down, had some stinkers in there as well as some fine goals. Spain haven't got a centre-forward as such, as we've discussed many times. France, Benzema was pretty terrible for the whole tournament, really. I mean, he had a real stinker, didn't he? And I think I might have actually said he was one of my choices of potential players of the tournament, pre-tournament. Well, that was a mistake, wasn't it? So, I mean, I guess Cristiano, if I can crowbar him into being a centre-forward for that one.
Yeah, I mean, Ronaldo was definitely the forward player I enjoyed watching the most, and you certainly couldn't call him a midfielder, could you? Otherwise, honourable mention, as you said earlier, Danny Welbeck was a shining light in an otherwise dreadful England side, and a very special moment watching him score that winner against Sweden with the absolute mad skills.
Brilliant goal, brilliant moment for Welbeck. Had a fine tournament, I thought, in a very, very, very defensive side. Hopefully he grows from here. He's got to add goals to his game to be the sort of, tournament-winning player that he could become, but we'll see. He really does need to add those goals, though. I mean, one goal in 4 games for Welbeck, but great great goal, and he'll grow loads from that.
Well, that's what I mean about kind of the narrative, to use that word again, about Welbeck is definitely that he needs to score more. But in this tournament, it would have been extremely hard for him to score more. That's the only point I'm making. But if you want a striker to lead the line, he is the man. So I've really enjoyed this tournament. Slight disappointment that there's been no extraordinary mullets on display, but there have been some very fine, ridiculous haircuts. Balotelli's odd little spiky thing that he's got going on, Welbeck's legendary flat top, Rooney's absolutely bizarre, shocking, odd hairdo, some fine, Japanese manga style haircuts amongst the Eastern European teams. They seem to have replaced the mullet in the love of the hearts of the Eastern European peoples.
Yes, well, it's very important, isn't it? I think the quality of the tournament as a whole has been very high, and much more attacking than South Africa 2 years ago, and it's been just a really good tournament. 30 games in, there's been very few poor games. Most of the poor games have involved England, unfortunately, and the quality has been very high. There's been no one tactical system that has dominated. Most of the teams have gone out to try and attack. Some massive disappointments, of course, France and Holland, hugely disappointing. There'll be disappointment in Germany that they didn't take the chance to win this tournament, because this was, as we said, their tournament, and one game to go, and yeah, it's hard to call this one, but I think overall it's been a really high quality tournament.
So I guess it's time to nail our colours to the mast and go for predictions. I've already said, in week one of the tournament that I thought Italy would win, and I'm not going to back down now. So I think a 2-1 victory for Italy, but I do think they have to score first for that to come to pass. I think it'll be very difficult for them to come from behind.
Yeah, I think 1-0 to Spain, and I think Spain will score late in that game after a very tight and tense game.
Okay, well, I hope it's free-flowing and attacking, tight and tense football. No such thing is there. And I guess that's it. I mean, thank you very much, as I said, for joining us. If you want to shout us any comments or questions over the holidays, you can get me at UTD Rantcast and get Ed at United Rant. You can always find us on Facebook by clicking like on United Rant. You can post comments on unitedrant.co.uk, where there'll be endless high-quality analysis between here and the start of the new season about all things Manchester United, as there always is.
Yes, thanks for joining us. It's been somewhat of an experiment here at Rant. Obviously, we're a Manchester United-focused website and podcast, so rarely get the opportunity to do international games. In fact, we normally take a break during international week, so it's been something of a diversion. It's been nice to chat about just general football, obviously with a slight Manchester United touch on it, and over on the site we've had a bit of an experiment too and done live blogging on not all of the games, maybe about half of the games, and that's been fun too. It's been good to have your feedback. Shoot us any feedback if you can. We'd like to know whether you'd like to see more of that, and I hope you enjoy the final. We'll be live blogging the final too if you fancy joining us there.
Absolutely, and for now, it's time for us to open that closet and get our purple shirts and fold them up neatly and put them away and get ready to wear with pride the Bebe 7 Manchester United shirt as United roll back into town. Pre-season starts in, a month and a bit, Ed?
Everyone's back in training on Monday, so that's it. We'll build up to the new season, so Monday, and then games at the end of July in South Africa, 2 in South Africa, 2 in China, and then back to Oslo for a game, and then I think United just announced a fixture against Barcelona, so pretty lengthy pre-season tour before the real thing starts again, August the 18th for the first Premier League game.
And we'll be back just before that. It's gonna be good to talk about United again. It's time for us to stop wearing purple. Oh, go on then, just one more time.
Start wearing purple, wearing purple. Start wearing purple for me now. All your sanity and wits, they will all vanish, I promise. It's just a matter of time. So yeah, start wearing purple, wearing purple. Start wearing purple for me now. All your sanity and wits, they will all vanish, I promise. It's just a matter of time. I know you since you were a 20. I was 20 and thought that some years from now a purple little lady will be perfect for a dirty old and useless clown. So yeah, start wearing purple, wearing purple. Start wearing purple for me now. All your sanity and wits, they will all vanish, I promise. It's just From Diogenes to the Foucault, from Ложечкин до паспорту. И я клянусь, обоссав два пальца, что ты, а? Что музыка...
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Styles McKenzie helping you make those rooms sing. Today's style tip. When it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild, like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Fierce. This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.